Shavua Tov, a gute Woche, and welcome to our program. Shabbos was Chof Cheshvan. Chof Cheshvan is the birthday of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden, the father of the previous Rebbe, who was born Chof Cheshvan Kisro, Tofreish, Chof Aleph. Many times, more than 3, 4, 5, many times during Farbrengens, especially when Chof Ov came out on Shabbos, Chof Cheshvan came out on Shabbos, the Rebbe told the story. And the Rebbe explained parts of the story. And the story fits also with Parshas Vayero. And the Rebbe said, especially when Chof Cheshvan comes out on Shabbos, Parshas Vayero, then that story is perfect. What's the story? The story is on the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden, the father of the previous Rebbe, when he was a child, 4 or 5 years old, and the reason for that is he couldn't be more than 5, because he was born Chof Aleph, and the Tzemach Tzedek, the story is with the Tzemach Tzedek, he went into his grandfather, to the Tzemach Tzedek, and he cried. The Tzemach Tzedek was Nistalik Tofreish Chof Vov. So therefore, he couldn't have been more than 5 years old. So it's either he was 4 years old, or at most 5 years old. He came into the room of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he started crying. And why was he crying? Why did Almighty God reveal himself to Avraham, but he's not revealing himself to us? The Rebbe talks about this and explains many times a different aspect of the story. First of all, why are we told the story? The Rebbe Nishmas Eden is not representative of every 5-year-old. We can understand that. As much as we love our children who are 5 years old, they are not on the same darge of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. So if the Rebbe Nishmas Eden cried when he was 5 years old, how come he doesn't see godliness? It doesn't mean that every child can do the same. Moreover, there's a question on the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. What is he crying about? How come to Avraham Avinu, yes, and to us, he does not reveal himself? You can say that say the same thing in the form of a statement. To Avraham Avinu, Almighty God revealed himself, but not to us. With all due respect, we are not Avraham Avinu. But the Rebbe Nishmas Eden cried, and the story is related to us. So that means that there is a teaching here that can reach also for us, and everybody understands that when we are 5 years old, years old or more, we are not on the same dalga, on the same plateau of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. We will return to that in a moment and to the Rebbe's explanation. But first, our customary story. Our customary story has to do with the situation today in Eretz HaKodesh. And let's remember, friends, what the Rebbe says, that each and every single one of us can help the situation in Eretz HaKodesh, and we spoke about it extensively last week. But basically is by doing more things of Torah and mitzvahs, more mivtzoim, starting from putting on tefillin. Tefillin has a special ingredient. The special ingredients of tefillin is the people of the world will see that God's name is upon you, and they will fear you. And the Gemara says in Broches, the blessed the great said, what are they going to see? They will see the tefillin. So by a Jew putting on tefillin any place in the world, because we are one body, it's going to help the soldiers who are fighting. And I must tell you, Rabbi, say, a personal feeling, but I'm sure it's not personal because everybody feels the same way. Going into Gaza now, I'm not sure that this is the right thing. There's something from the Rebbe. I'm going into Lebanon, not to send in ground soldiers because it's dangerous. And it's understood that sending in soldiers into Gaza, unfortunately, we saw that it's not the best idea. Not only that, it seems that this was not a military decision. This was a political decision. And that hurts. A political decision has no room in this situation when you're dealing with human lives. So therefore, we send in the soldiers because of a political decision, because of world pressure. We don't have to say more. We know what happened. There is a story, Abesai. Happened in 1991. And a journalist came to see the Rebbe. This was an absolutely leftist journalist with a big amount of chutzpah, I must add, from the way he asked the question. But we know what the Rebbe answered him. So this leftist journalist that belonged to the group of Shalom Achshav, left of the left, comes to the Rebbe, and he asks the Rebbe a question in Hebrew. Hayiti me'od rotzeh ladat, he says, I very much wanted to know. Im kvod harav adayin machzik b'deya, if the Rebbe is still holding the position that shetzarich lehashir et kol hashtachim, that you should leave all the areas of Shomron, of Yehuda, Shomron and Gaza, and then he says, afilu im ze yichlol milchama neged kol haolam, even if this is going to include a war against the whole world. A little bit of a chutzpah to ask, but that's not the issue here. This is exactly what he asked the Rebbe. Whether the Rebbe is still holding the position. That's a chutzpah to say that. But he asked whether the Rebbe is still holding the position that we should hold down to all the territories of Yehuda and Shomron and Gaza, even if it's going to include a war with the whole world. Forget about the chutzpah, but this is the question. And this is what the Rebbe answered him. Also in Hebrew and in Lashon Kodesh. Elu harotzim lehilachem im Yisrael, those who want to fight against Israel, leis kukim lesibo meyuchedes. They do not need an extra excuse or a special excuse. They're doing it out of pure anti-Semitism. To translate anti-Shemiyus tehero means in the literal verbatim translation, anti-Shemiyus, means anti-Semitism. Tehero means pure. Pure, and they are doing it out of pure, the Rebbe says, let's understand this. They are doing this out of pure anti-Semitism. And then the Rebbe says, and they will always find reasons to oppose Israel. And then the Rebbe said these words, and there's no difference whether Israel is going to do it like this or like this. In other words, listen to them or not listen to them. It's not going to make any difference. The anti-Semitism is going to be the same. Now, this is 1991. The Rebbe's words are as poignant and as fresh as the day the Rebbe said them 32 years ago. It's the same today. Putting pressure on Israel, you have to do this, you have to do this. The Rebbe says, all of those who are going to oppose you are going to oppose you anyway. You have to do what is right. And don't worry what the world is going to do. Now, Ben Gurion, friends, was not a Jew that should be emulated. There are many things that he wasn't perfect, but he was a smart Jew. And he said one word, one slogan that is important for all of us. Lo chashuv ma shehagoyim yomru. It's not important what the goyim are going to say. Chashuv ma shehayehudim ya'asu. It's important what the Jews are going to do. Forget about what the goyim are going to do. The Rebbe already said. They're going to say whatever they want anyway, because it's pure anti-Semitism. They'll always find a different excuse. We have to do what we have to do, the right way, and ask military experts, not political experts. That's when the problem comes in. military expert to tell us exactly what to do. Rabbi say, concerning the question, there is also a story of the Slonim Rebbe who is friendly with the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. And the Slonim Rebbe would from time to time come to visit. He would come to Lubavitch, and he would visit with the Rebbe Nishmas Eden in Lubavitch. And there was a friendship between them. And once when the Slonim Rebbe came, the Rebbe Nishmas Eden asked him to say something. That was a way of being mechabed somebody, of honoring somebody, saying to him, maybe you want to say something. And he said, the parasha was not Vayero, the parasha was Vo'ero. So the Slonim Rebbe said like this, Vo'ero el ha'ovis, Vo'ero, Rashi says, el ha'ovis, Vo'ero means, and I revealed myself. Rashi says, el ha'ovis. So the Slonim Rebbe explained what does el ha'ovis mean. The simple pshat is to the ovis, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankov. And he said it in Yiddish, el ha'ovis, zu die Weller, to those who want. Because we know the word ovo means to want. We find it in next parsha, in Parshas Chayesoro, and many times in Chumash. Ulai leiseve ho'isho. Ulai the woman will not want to come. Eliezer said that to Avraham. V'li ovo Hashem elikecho. And Almighty God did not want to listen to Bilam. So ovo comes from the word ovo, wanting. And el ha'ovis means to those who wanted. Who want. Vo'ero el ha'ovis, and I revealed myself el ha'ovis to the veler, to those who want. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden was so happy with what the Slonim Rebbe said that he called in his son, the previous Rebbe. And when the previous Rebbe came in, he asked the Slonim Rebbe to repeat what he says in the presence of the previous Rebbe. That's the story known by Chassidim. Now, there's a question here. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden was the Rambam of Chassidus. And what's the great excitement with what the Slonim Rebbe said? Maybe anybody can figure it out. Great excitement, calls in the son, asked him to repeat it. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden was so excited about this word. What's so excitable about this word? The answer is maybe, and that's for you to choose. Because the Slonim Rebbe answered the kasha of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden had a kasha since he was 5 years old. Why did Almighty God reveal himself to Avraham Avinu and not to us? Comes the Slonim Rebbe and gives you a very simple answer. Vo'ero el ha'ovis. I revealed myself to those who want. In other words, there's no reason to cry. If you want, Almighty God is going to reveal yourself to you. That's the fault of the Slonim Rebbe. There's no reason to cry. There's no reason to be aggravated. If you want, God will reveal himself to you. Are you going to say you tried and he didn't reveal? So it's very simple. You have to try more. So therefore, the Rebbe Nishmas Eden was so excited, so to speak, about this word that he called in his son, because the Slonim Rebbe answered the kasha that he had since he was 5 years old. This is for you to think about. The Rebbe answers that after the Rebbe Nishmas Eden cried, he opened the door to everyone. Yes, not every 5-year-old is worried that he doesn't get a revelation from God. But once the Rebbe Nishmas Eden opened the gates, and we are told the story, that means that we can get there. We can get there if we try. And not only that, the Rebbe explains. He says there's a difference before the story and after the story. Before the story was the closed book. It was only to Avraham Avinu, and we cannot reach there. The Rebbe Nishmas Eden opened the floodgates, that this is something that can be for everyone. And if we are concerned, then in Yirtzeh Hashem, then we can get there. And the Rebbe explains, Yagiu Masai means not dafke that it should reach evenly, even if it points, if it only reaches, it touches. Yagiu, even if it touches, the Pulis and the Maisim of Avraham Avinu, then we have already gained something. There is a wonderful story before we get to what the Rebbe Nishma Seiden, since it is Chof Cheshvan, to what the Rebbe Nishma Seiden wrote in his big hemshech, in the big sequence of Maimorim called Tofreish Samach Vov. It's 1905, 1906, and it's a hemshech, it's a sequence of 60 Maimorim, the deepest inyonim of Chassidus and brought down in a way that everyone can try to understand. Before that, there's a wonderful story that the previous Rebbe writes, with many details. He writes a story of the Chosid Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky. Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky was a special Chosid. He was a Chosid of the Rebbe Maharash. And he was zeicher that whenever he would come to the Rebbe Maharash would say Chassidus, especially for Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky. That was the specialty of this individual Chosid, Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky. After the Istalkus of the Rebbe Maharash, he became a Chosid of the Rebbe Nishma Seiden. The Rebbe Nishma Seiden would travel very often to Menton. Menton is in the south of France, because he had a problem breathing. And in Menton, because it's on a mountain on one side and the water on the other side, so because the mountain and the water together created the proper atmosphere for him to be able to breathe the way he wanted. So he spent a lot of time in Menton. This Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky lived in Kremenchuk, which is in the Ukraine. So he traveled from Kremenchuk to Menton for one reason, to hear Chassidus from the Rebbe Nishma Seiden. That's how much Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky wanted Chassidus. And he came, traveled all night. He came to Menton. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, he knew that he can't go into the Rebbe Nishma Seiden because it's too early. So near the house of the Rebbe Nishma Seiden, there was a park. So he sat down on one of the benches of the park, and he started singing a nigun. The previous Rebbe writes about it extensively, and he visualized like he's by the Rebbe Maharash, and he's hearing a maimer of the Rebbe Maharash. Now the Rebbe Nishma Seiden is in his house, and then he hears a nigun. He hears a nigun, a song that's familiar, a voice that's familiar to him. The Rebbe Nishma Seiden went outside. He went into the park, and he sees Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky sitting at a bench. And first he stood behind him, but then he stood in front of him. He wanted to see his face. He saw his face. His eyes were closed, and there were tears coming down on his cheeks. And he was singing a nigun. And the Rebbe Nishma Seiden said, what he saw is a chosid that on the one hand, this chosid lost his Rebbe. And nevertheless, the year was the winter of Tofreish Memhei. The winter of Esai of Tofreish Memhei, it's 1885. It was that winter. And the Zalman traveled specially, and Rebbe Nishma Seiden said that this is a chosid who lost his Rebbe beguf, in body. However, in spirit, it's as if he's standing in front of him. And Rebbe Nishma Seiden stood a long time to watch Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky sing this nigun, but he didn't disturb him. Later on, he asked Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky a question. If he can tell him which maimer was he thinking of b'shas ma'aser. And the previous Rebbe writes, Rebbe Zalman Zlatopolsky was a Jew with a big heart and with a big head. But when he asked him this question, it was so emotional for him that he started crying. He couldn't talk. And after a while, he said, it's Rebbe Marash who said this and this Maimel on this and this Shabbos. And years later, the Rebbe Nishma Seiden showed his son, the previous Rebbe, on a certain bench. And he says, on this bench, you see this bench? This is where Reb Zlomin Zlatopolsky sat, and he sang the Nigun. It's, I must tell you, an absolutely heartwarming story. And now, let's go to Samach Vov. Samach Vov is a sequence of 60 Maimorim, and you don't have to worry. We're not going to do 60 Maimorim. But maybe we will do one part of the first Maimel of Samach Vov. In the first Maimel of Samach Vov, the Rebbe Nishma Seiden asks a question. A very practical question, if you may. And the question is, why did Almighty God need this world? The question becomes more today when you see the world with all the terrorism. Why did he have to create this world? What does he get out of this world? Only lies and conceit and terrorism and murder? This is what he needed? What did he need this world for? This is the question that Rebbe Nishma Seiden writes in the first Maimel of Samach Vov, and this is the birthday of the Rebbe Nishma Seiden, Chof Cheshvan. And he answers, he brings from Mekubolim who answer two answers. One, in order, there should be these galus of Shleimes Kechesov. It should be a revelation of the fulfillment of the greatness of Almighty God's powers. Almighty God wanted to show, to reveal the great powers that he has. And what can he do? He can create this world. That's one of the reasons. The second reason, that he wants the people, the Nevi'im, should be makir, should recognize his greatness. And therefore he created this world. To make a long story short, the Rebbe Nishma Seiden says that both of these explanations are short. Why? Almighty God does not need that to show the greatness of his powers. He doesn't need this for his greatness. And if he's not going to show it, it's the same thing. He's not going to change. And he doesn't change. So what did he need it for? Plus, the Rebbe Nishma Seiden argues, or explains, if he did it so that we should understand, so the Rebbe Nishma Seiden says, how much do we understand already? The big understanding is in the upper worlds. There they understand godliness. How much godliness does the human being already understand? And for that he had to create this world. And he kind of says that these two answers are not adequate. And then he offers an answer. And the answer is, he brings a medrash. You want to know why Almighty God created this world? Nisave HaKodesh Baruch Hu liyes lei dira betachtenim. Almighty God craved. Nisave comes from the word taive. He craved to have a habitation in this world. And the Rebbe Nishma Seiden explains, if it's a taiva, if it's a craving, you can't ask any questions. The Alter Rebbe already said, you don't ask a question, why I crave this, that's how I am. I like this and this. And therefore, he says, the craving is that in this world, what's your question? Why did he want a world as difficult as this? That's the answer. That in this difficult world, with all the terrorism, Almighty God wanted a habitation for himself in this world. He could have habitation for himself in the upper worlds, where there's no opposition whatsoever, and he would get whatever he wants. But he wanted a habitation for himself in this world. And if you're going to ask questions, why did he want in this world? The answer is, it's a taiva, nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As a matter of fact, there are some who quote this line, nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lases le dila betachtenim. So they add one word, nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lases le yisborich dila betachtenim. Now it sounds like a line taken out of Chassidus. It's not a line taken out of Chassidus, and it's not a line taken out of Kisvei HaRizal, and it's not a line taken out of Tikkun Zehar. It's a line taken out of the Medrash. And that means that it's for everyone. It's for everyone to know. Whether you learn Chassidus, it doesn't learn Chassidus, you should learn Chassidus. But independent, the Medrash says this for everyone. Almighty God wants a habitation for him in this world. And the Rebbe explains in this world means, Batachteni means in the lowest part of the world. Because if there is another world that's lower than this, then this is not Tachteni. Then there's another world that's lower. He wants in the lowest part of the world. And this is where we are. Look at all the terrorism in the world. Can't be worse than that. And Almighty God wants a habitation for himself in this world. And who is going to make the habitation for Almighty God? Let's look at each other. You and I and everyone else. We have been given the mission that we should take this world and work with this world and refine this world little by little, refine ourselves and our part in the world and then the entire world, and then to make the world a better place and a habitation for Almighty God. This is our mission, and this is what the Rebbe Nishmat Seiden says. And it's the Rebbe Nishmat Seiden, Rabbi say, who not only spoke about this mission, who did something about this mission. He's the one who founded Timchit Mimim. Not only soldiers, generals, who will come into this world and show the world what to do. And he gave him ammunition. The ammunition is Chassidus. And take this ammunition and work with the world and refine the world and bring light to the world and prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach. And this is our mission. Because by now, the refinement was done. There's only a little bit of Pachim Ktanim that's left. And it's up to each and every single one of us to take care of those little Pachim Ktanim. Pachim Ktanim means small vessels. Not big vessels. Small vessels who are left. And then in Miyat Hashem we will prepare ourselves and the world for that great moment of the great revelation of the coming of Mashiach. Uba'agolo didanu v'simcho uv'tuv livov u'v'teva nira ve'anigle u'lamato me'asor atfochim u'v'chesed u'v'rachamim v'teikef u'miyad mamesh.